Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel, wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. How are you doing? I'm doing so well, thank you very much, and all the better for being able to share these fabulous stories with you. And I do love hearing from you. Thank you so much for your incredible comments. It's amazing that my head isn't the size of a huge watermelon, or bigger than that actually. But anyway, thank you so much. I love hearing from you, and I love knowing what you drink and where you're from, and so that's just so fabulous. But before we get started, don't forget the rules. You have to go and get yourself that fabulous drink, because I've got an amazing story for you tonight. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Click the notification bell and the thumbs up. You know I love the thumbs up. So let's get started with tonight's story. Dear Sarah and all your lovely listeners, the first time I laid eyes on Pippa Lockwood, I was completely infatuated. I mean, who could wear bright dangling yellow earrings like that and still look so alluring? I had noticed her in church of all places, an implausible, random sighting of a young girl who held my attention like no one else I'd ever met before. I say random, as I barely ever entered a church building, as growing up my parents despised anything to do with organised religion. Their indelible anti-religious influences had unwittingly rubbed off on my life. It was not that I didn't believe in the big man upstairs. On the contrary, I did perceive that a higher power was possibly involved in our lives in some way. Otherwise nothing really made any sense. But in truth, I really had not given the matter much thought. I was only in church on this specific occasion, as I happened to be staying at my best buddy's house, for we were planning to go rabbit hunting the following day with his father. So it was exceedingly serendipitous to be in this beguiling stone building, with its colourful arched stained glass windows, depicting varying images of Christ on the cross or as a baby in a manger. Pippa had entered the church 15 minutes into the service, right in the middle of a sermon. She stood at the front doorway, yards away from where the preacher was addressing his congregation, her face flushing pink, her eyes darting awkwardly to the man behind the pulpit, who glanced at her with a brief despairing look, along with a cynical raised brow, as if to say, "You're late again." It seemed like every head in the entire congregation had turned around to look directly at her, almost as if her intrusion in the service had not gone unnoticed. I would hasten to say she had ruffled a few feathers, possibly making some churchgoers more than a little miffed to be so rudely interrupted, because I did discern a few shaking heads. I watched as she mouthed the words, "I'm sorry," to all the parishioners, bending her head over in a submissive, cowering position, virtually crawling across the front row of seats to sit next to a very prim-looking woman with dark red hair, held away from her face in a coiled bun. She was her mother's daughter, all right. You could see the striking resemblance. I could see the mother give her daughter an infuriated, "How could you?" look. "Who is that?" I whispered to Carton, my friend. "That girl over there with the red hair, the bright yellow earrings." "Oh, that's Pippa Lockwood. She's the minister's daughter. She's forever arriving to the services late. It drives her parents completely dilly. I can't tell you how many sermons she's actually rudely interrupted like this. She seems to be making a habit of it lately. Goodness knows why." "You've got to be kidding," I thought. A minister's daughter? Did it get any worse than that? I groaned inwardly. Damn! Why did she have to be a minister's daughter of all things? She could have been anybody else's daughter, but a minister's daughter? Please, no. That really was a bummer. She was so lovely. Dark auburn hair, blue sparkling eyes, porcelain skin. It didn't get more beguiling than that. Well, not for me, it didn't. Unfortunately, red hair for me was my Achilles heel, as it has always made me weak at the knees. Oh goodness, she was drop-dead gorgeous. I was completely smitten. I remember the entire service. My head was filled with all kinds of ways I could try and surreptitiously introduce myself to this provocative young woman, who looked as if she was likely around about my age, which was about 21 at the time. I'd never been a desperately confident young man. I was rather on the skinny side, but my father always assured me that I would grow into my body one day, and even dream of being this skinny again. Somehow I seriously doubted that. I had tried absolutely everything to put on weight, but nothing worked. I wasn't bad looking. Well, so I'd been assured by my mother's friends, who told me that with my dark wavy hair, green eyes, and bright charming smile, that I was a heartbreaker. That too I seriously doubted. "I've got to meet her," I told Carton, as the church emptied. It was now or never, I thought, holding my breath, gritting my teeth, crossing my fingers, and ambling casually towards the unsuspecting girl, trying to keep a nonchalant, indifferent, fixed look on my face, when on the inside I was literally squirming with terror, like an octopus caught on a fisherman's spear, terrified of being rejected. What if she turned me down, refused to go on a date with me? He who dares wins, I firmly told myself. That was my mother's motto in life. She had always persuaded me of this. If you really want something badly enough in life, son, don't ever be afraid to grab it with both hands. Approach it with boldness and conviction. Do it with courage. If you don't go for it, the opportunity may pass you by like a hot air balloon on the wind that escapes you, floating off into the wild blue yonder, never ever to be seen again. My heart was pounding in my chest, my hands were clammy, I was trembling on the insides, but I refused to allow any lingering doubts to subdue this quintessential opportunity to meet this ravishing red-haired goddess. I was now directly behind her, so close in fact that I could touch one of her buoyant curls if I wanted to, but I daren't. I cleared my throat so loudly, with a deep guttural growl that earned me more than a few disapproving glances from some of the parishioners, who were possibly thinking I was more than a little vulgar, but I really didn't care about that. It worked a charm, and that was the whole idea. Pippa Lockwood turned around to see who was making that atrocious guttural sound. Her cornflower blue eyes were looking directly into mine. "Bless you," she said. "That was quite some, Thank you. I stuttered. "That was quite an entrance you made in the church this morning, if I might say so. Every eye was on you. Do you happen to make a habit of being late, so that you can make a grand entrance, rather like the Queen of England addressing the Houses of Parliament?" I teased. I didn't do that intentionally. I wasn't trying to make a grand entrance. It just happened. I was only pulling your leg. I keep doing it every week, arriving late at services. I'm going to have an earful from my father this evening. I know it. I was wondering if perhaps you could consider going out for coffee with me sometime. Pippa looked at me in surprise. Then her face wrinkled up in disgust, and my heart almost missed a beat. "Oh, I quite understand," I said, flushing with embarrassment. "You're not interested." "You misunderstand me. I hate coffee. I've never ever understood how anybody could like such a bitter, nasty drink. But I wouldn't be adverse to a milkshake if you asked me." My face lit up like a Christmas tree. She hadn't refused me. "I know a fabulous place we can go. They do the best milkshakes in town. Thick, creamy, luscious. It's a date then, but it might just help if I knew your name." "My name's Lachlan Wedderburn Maxwell," I told her. "Wow, that is a mouthful," she laughed, "but I like it. I like it a lot. Long names are so interesting. Yours sounds incredibly posh, really rather pretentious, but I like it." I hadn't known at that point in time how dating a man of the cloth's daughter would actually pan out for me. I might have had extreme reservations if I'd even envisaged for a second the hoops I'd have to jump over to date this alluring goddess, but Pippa was worth all the hassle. After all, nothing you ever really wanted in life came easy. Well, not for me, it didn't. I had to fight for everything I'd ever desired, but in reality, it certainly made the rewards much greater. The first time I arrived at Pippa's family home to pick her up, I could see her sapient, shrewd father sussing me out, as if he was determining whether my intentions towards his daughter were indeed honourable. He was like an astute buzzard flying over a dead carcass in the wilderness. I mean, this sagacious man was checking me out, as if he was searing through my mind, dividing bone and sinew, to see what was really in my heart. It was more than a little confounding for me. "Come in, son," he said in a deep male voice. "Might I have a brief word with you in private?" "Sure," I said, looking increasingly uncomfortable, suspecting that he was going to give me the 3rd degree by asking me all kinds of awkward, inappropriate questions. "Dad," Pippa had groaned, rolling her eyes. "Please don't, Dad. You're embarrassing me," she said, her face flushing a bright pink. "Really? Must you do this? Please, please, Dad, don't do this." "Well, if that's the way you feel, Pippa, I'll say it as it is in front of my daughter. What are your intentions with my Pippa here?" The question hit me like a gun to the head. Sir, we're just going out for a milkshake. It's not that complicated." "As long as that is all it is," said Mr. Lockwood, looking at me intensely, his judicious eyes almost burning into mine. He waggled his omniscient finger, very suggestively at me. "I know all about young men and their raging hormones. I was a young man myself once, so believe me when I say I know the score. I assure you, Lachlan, my daughter is a virtuous young girl. She's a rose that is not to be picked until her wedding day, if you get my drift," he said, raising a brow. "We're a religious family. We take these kind of things very, very seriously." "Yes, sir," I said, shuffling awkwardly and flushing crimson with embarrassment, feeling desperately humiliated, almost as if I'd been caught with my pants down or my hands in the till stealing thousands of dollars. This man had the unfortunate, daunting capacity of making me feel uncomfortably discomposed all the time, almost as if I'd committed a heinous crime. I knew that my face looked as guilty as hell, rather like a dog that had eaten the fillet steak on the counter and was feigning innocence, but no one was buying his cowering act. In truth, if I had not been so enamoured by Mr. Lockwood's daughter, I would have run a mile, never dated the girl again. Maybe that was Mr. Lockwood's clever idea behind his interrogation, scaring off all Pippa's adoring male admirers, but the men worth their weight in gold would stick around despite everything. I was to realise that dating Pippa was to become one of the biggest challenges of my young life, as her astucious father was always breathing down my back like a dragon. The calculating man was a complete nightmare, watching my every move, loitering around every dark corner like a skulking leopard, lying in wait to pounce upon me at any given opportunity. He had this uncanny, airy ability to turn up at places just by chance. One time, for example, when I'd taken Pippa to a pizza restaurant, who should be sitting there a few tables down, waving at us exuberantly with bright, dazzling smiles, but Pippa's own parents. Now I ask you, what are the chances of that ever happening? It's about 1,000,000 to 1 at the National Lottery. But there he was, Mr. Lockwood, of course, shadowing me like a detective inspector on the trail of a villainous thug. "How extraordinary! Hello, Lachlan. It's very good to see you tonight. Who would have thought that we would both end up eating in exactly the same Italian restaurant this evening, at exactly the same time? How very, very strange." "Of course you know it's no accident," Pippa would whisper to me, as her father kept glancing over at our table, watching me with his hawk-like eyes. "He's doing this on purpose, I know he is. My dad is so terrified of you taking advantage of his little girl. Honestly, it's so humiliating. Sometimes I wish the ground would swallow me whole. Why did I ever have to be born a minister's daughter, for goodness sake?" "You took the very words out of my mouth. I was thinking the very same thing. I feel like he's been stalking us. Has he always been like this?" "Always. He's very suspicious of every boy I ever date. Doesn't trust them an inch." One day when I dropped Pippa off home after a date, secretly hoping that this would be the quintessential golden moment when I would give her a long, impassioned kiss, who should come barging out of the house like a bad-tempered hippopotamus but her own father? He would dash up to the car in a frenzy like a frantic bee, buzzing over a can of cola, hurriedly opening the passenger side door for his daughter so that she could get out, just to ensure that any intimacy between us was wiped away as swiftly as the rain on a windscreen. So any opportunity for me to so much as brush my lips against his daughter's cheeks was completely expunged from me. I knew her father was doing this deliberately, as he always gave me that self-satisfied, smug, triumphant look, as he must have known he was annoying me profusely. Little did he realise that his overprotective behaviour was doing little to put me off his daughter. "Hello, Lachlan," he would say almost mockingly. "Did you have a good date with my daughter this evening?" "Yes, sir," I would say. "Very nice, thank you." "Good. I'm very glad to hear it." Another time when I pulled up the drive to drop Pippa off home, I got so close to kissing her, so close, only seconds away, and I mean seconds, before my lips were about to touch hers. Who should be knocking frantically against the car window, staring in at us like an agog-eyed goldfish, but Mr. Lockwood himself. Of course, I couldn't have expected anything else. His rounded face was beaming in at us brightly, like a glaring, obtrusive, blinding sunshine. I really wanted to throttle the annoying man. I felt as mad as a hatter. I knew he didn't trust me an inch with his daughter. His scepticism about my intentions towards her was exceedingly frustrating. Did he ever think that a normal man would put up with such intensive surveillance? Hardly. It was less than likely. I had it on good authority that the man had been checking up on my family, gleaming about as much information about us as possible, leaving no stone unturned in his ardent investigation of my family roots, possibly trying to see if my bloodline had any connections to piracy on the high seas. One day I had an idea to get one up on the incredulous Mr. Lockwood, to spend some quality time with my girlfriend, where I might actually get a fleeting moment to kiss her for the first time. I mean, I'd been dating her for so long, and even that privilege had been withheld from me. But believe me, I had tried. But everywhere I went with her, I felt that we were both like two fish in a tank of sharks, warily watching our backs all the time. My mother was telling me that Mr. and Mrs. McLaughlin were going away for the weekend. She had asked them on my behalf if they wouldn't mind if me and my girlfriend could camp out on their private beach in Oregon. "Oh, camping," said Pippa excitedly, her face lighting up like a warm Caribbean sunset. "I love camping." Then her face dropped. The excitement ebbed away like a feather in the wind, her lips curling downwards into a frown, her eyes momentarily losing their sparkle. "But what about Dad? He'd never allow me to spend the night with you without a ring on my finger. He's rigid, my Dad, very unyielding. He would never trust us completely on our own, never. There is a way around your suspicious father. We could call his bluff. It might just work to our advantage. Could you not just tell him a white lie? Tell him you're staying with a girlfriend, so that we can sneak off together without him knowing about it. If he thinks you're staying with a girlfriend, he'll be disarmed. Goodness gracious, he treats you like a pathetic child. He watches me suspiciously like a hawk all the time. We never get good quality time together without him breathing down our backs like a pent-up dragon. I've been so longing to kiss you, but at this rate it's never ever going to happen. It's driving me insane." "You're longing to kiss me? Well, you're not the only one. I'd say ditto to that," she said with a mischievous twinkle in her eyes. "I do fancy the sound of that." "Tell me about it," I said, raising a brow. "But I guarantee you one thing. If I so much as touch your lips, charging through the undergrowth over there would be your hefty father, looking very, very surly." "You're funny," laughed Pippa. "You've got my father down to a T. You know, let's do it. Dad's brought this on himself. If he trusted me a little more and gave me a bit more credit, we wouldn't have to go sneaking around his back like this." And so it was I set up camp for me and Pippa, on quite literally the most exquisite piece of pristine private beach that you've ever seen, on the Oregon coast. The place would have made your jaw hang open. It was spectacularly beautiful. The McLaughlin $1 million residence was nestled on the top of a rocky embankment, rather like a crisp white rose among a curvaceous outcrop of voluptuous boulders that, much like the clouds in the sky, embodied all kinds of curious shapes that made your imagination run wild with creative, inspirational ideas in regards to the shapes of the rocks and what they represented. A long, sweeping, ornate black wrought iron staircase with decorative balustrades composed of twirling leaves and flowers led from the house to the beach. where the long ribbon of white beach sand stretched to an infinitude to the wild blue yonder. There was a vast area of woodland forest, made up mostly of tall Douglas fir trees clustered together, along with the occasional Japanese maple or crab-apple tree that swept up a precipitous hilly embankment. Luckily I found a decent clearing that was fringed by Douglas firs that made a perfect windbreak, but was close enough to the beach and, of course, the exquisite oceanfront views, where I was able to pitch up our tent. That was when I saw Pippa gliding down the staircase with an overnight bag in one hand, as she gracefully trotted towards me, her golden red hair bouncing buoyantly across her shoulders. Maybe her father was right, I thought. She needed protecting for me, as right now she had completely stolen my breath away. She looked so beautiful. It was all I could do not to get a little hot under the collar. She looked as if she was appearing on one of those hair shampoo advertisements for L'Oreal Paris, the way her hair was blowing up in the wind. "It's so beautiful here," she gasped in wondrous awe. "I'm so glad I came. My word, imagine being so rich that you own your own private beach. How do your parents know these McLaughlins?" "My father taught Mr. McLaughlin how to play chess. The rest is history. They've been friends for many years. He made his money in the coal industry, I gather." "It's good to have friends in high places. I mean, a beach to ourselves. You've got to be kidding. It doesn't get better than that." Suddenly I felt overcome with the most dreadful shyness as I held Pippa's hands, as this was the first moment I'd ever been able to touch her properly, due to her father's beady eyes, observing my every move like a suspicious, disapproving headmaster, ready to rap my knuckles in any second with his heavy iron belt. I can assure you, my heart was racing through my chest as I felt so excited to be holding her hand. I felt as if all my Christmases had come at once. The only way I can describe it to you is rather like being deprived of your favourite food on a diet, and then you eat your first bite of chocolate cake after a long period of abstinence. That first mouthful has got to be utterly mind-blowing, decadent, naughty, unrestrained. Before long we chased each other across the beach, giggling, laughing, knocking each other over in the luxurious soft sand that caressed our feet with its soft exfoliants. We kissed and we kissed and we kissed. We couldn't stop. I was on a high like never before. For kissing Pippa, let's just say it melted my heart like butter, made me weak at the knees. For no woman had ever had this effect on me. And in this moment it hit me like a hatchet to the head that I'd fallen hard for this girl, rarely hard, and there was not a lot I could do about it. I felt a bit like a fly caught up in a spider's web, that I could no longer deny my feelings for her. I was literally head over heels in love. We ran into the surf, splashing each other with water, feeling its salty coolness envelop our feet in a refreshing spray. We even played with a bat and ball, made large sand castles like little children. I can't recall a time in my life I felt more animated, more alive, more happy. Later in the afternoon, when the sun was beginning to wind down for the day, dappling the horizon in splashes of golds, yellows, tangerines and pinks, we sat by the fire pit cooking burgers, chicken wings and spare ribs over a grill, finally tucking into the delectable barbecue that tasted so good in the salty sea air. We watched the undulating breakers of the ocean rise and fall, crashing over the occasional boulder with a white bubbly spray of water. How I loved watching the waves moving across the sand, pulling ever backwards and forwards, rather like a yo-yo on a string, leaving behind an indelible wet trail on the sea sand, lined by a frothy frill. "Look over there," said Pippa. "A man!" There was a large figure on the beach walking down the white sand. But who was he? "I thought you said that this was a private beach. But if that's the case, what is the man doing there? It's not even that cold, but it looks like he's dressed for the Winter Olympics in those woolly ski pants of his. A little like overkill, if you ask me." In truth, I wasn't happy to see a stranger loitering around this private beach. Maybe word of the McLaughlins' weekend away had come to his attention, for it would seem that his tight-fitting woolly ski pants were complemented by a snug, tight-fitting jacket, and on his head it looked like he was wearing a balaclava. He was too far away to study closely, but certainly on first impressions he did look rather strange. "You don't think he's planning to rob the McLaughlins, and is hanging out on the beach waiting for his buddies to arrive so they can pilferage the house together?" "I don't think it would be very easy for them to do that. If my memory serves me right, I think the house has a state-of-the-art security system that alerts the security company, if anything breaks into the house, that is. Well, there are ways to deactivate security systems, surely. You know, like some of those great bank robberies you hear about. Maybe. But a big bank is a lot more profitable to break into than $1 million residence, I assure you. Can you even begin to imagine the meticulous planning involved in a scheme like that? It wouldn't be an easy endeavour to undertake by any means. Well, if that's the case, what's he doing there, loitering around a private beach like an odious bad smell? I wish he'd go. He's invading our privacy. I'm not sure what he's doing here. The man continued to walk along the beach, but he almost glided as he walked, with such an incredible grace. My thoughts morphed from him being a robber to a ballet dancer or a gymnast, as he didn't have those jarring, jolting movements you see in the average walker or runner. I'd never seen anyone walk so fluidly before, with such extraordinary deportment. He lowered himself on the ground, sitting back on the sand, gazing up in wondrous awe at the sunset, obviously as beguiled by it as we were. He's no robber, I told Pippa. He's definitely not a robber. He's a man that clearly enjoys the natural world. He's trespassing on a private beach to enjoy the privacy of the view. I think I'll go and say hello. Let him know we're here. But are you sure that's a good idea? Actually, I do have an ulterior motive, I admit. Do you see the way he walked? I just think he might be a gymnast or a dancer. I'm eager to find out. I tell you what, I'll watch your back. I've got my cell phone here. If he gives you any hassles at all, I'll call the police. Just wave to me if you have any problems with him whatsoever. Righty-o, I said. As I ambled towards the mysterious stranger, the closer I ventured to him, the more acutely aware I became of his substantial size. For on a seated upright position, the stranger appeared exceedingly tall, with a sizable girth. I must say I was really rather perturbed by his woolly attire, that I couldn't see clearly, as I was not wearing my long-distance glasses at the time, which I had removed as the day was now drawing in. I never wear glasses in the evening. "Hello there," I called out from a little way away, just to get his attention and alert him to my presence, so he wasn't completely startled out of his mind when he saw me. As I approached the stranger close up, I stopped dead in my tracks, because I could see that this was no man. This was a Bigfoot. Oh my God! Truly there are no words to describe how shocked and confounded I was. I was dumbfounded. I was certain my mouth was possibly hanging open like an astonished goldfish. The creature looked directly at me, his dark eyes seemingly amused by my reaction to him, as they twinkled with amusement. He patted the ground next to him, indicating for me to take a seat, as if he wanted my company. At this I was more than a little hesitant, wary, ever so slightly reluctant, which was a natural reaction on my part. For I do not exaggerate when I say that this creature was colossal sitting up, so what he was like standing up I could only imagine. It was like getting up close and personal to a lion in the wild, hoping with all your heart he wasn't going to bite your hand off. But in reality, despite the daunting, impassive physical appearance of this creature, he was anything but predatory. He seemed warm, convivial, friendly even, and not remotely concerned about my presence. It was exceedingly bizarre, as I've often heard of Bigfoot shooing people away from places by throwing stones at them. But this incongruous Bigfoot was inviting me into his space. I knew instinctively his intentions were not nefarious. It was like I could read the creature's thoughts. I felt as if he was saying, "Come and watch the sunset with me. I really would appreciate the company." It was with a little trepidation that I sat down next to this Bigfoot. I was so close to him that I could literally touch him, but I didn't. I watched the rise and fall of his chest, as some of the hair there was less dense. I could even see how ripped the creature was beneath his dark grey leathery skin, as the ropey curls of the tight muscles could easily be discerned. The creature breathed like a horse from a very flat aquatic nasal cavity on his nose, but the thing that I've never anticipated before was just how human his face was. Granted, he did have the quintessential pointed head and the long primate arms often talked about, but other than being totally enormous and covered with long flowing black hair, he was almost completely human. I did think his face had a rugged handsomeness about it, with very prominent high cheekbones, a square jawline, and such interesting, intelligent eyes. The creature started speaking to me in a language I've never heard before, that sounded like an old indigenous language spoken by the American Indians from times gone by. I listened, nodded, and agreed as we watched the sunset. As the sunset finally faded away, before the night rolled in, the Bigfoot got up. I nearly passed out on the spot as he towered above me at over 7 foot tall. I felt so tiny and inconspicuous next to him. The Bigfoot tapped me on the back and then just glided away. I watched in awe as he almost floated across the sea sand, leaving behind him a trail of whopping footprints in the sand. "Well," asked Pippa excitedly, "is he a gymnast, the man I mean?"
"You could say, in a manner of speaking, that he is. If you must know, it was a Bigfoot."
"Have you lost leave of your senses? Why on earth did you go and sit next to a creature like that? Aren't they supposed to be dangerous? I can't believe what you just did back there."
"Well, I wasn't wearing my glasses, so I didn't see that he wasn't human at first, until I got up close and personal. But he was so kind. He wanted me to watch the sunset with him."
Pippa's mouth hung open like a Venus flytrap. "My God, you saw a Bigfoot, and you sat right next to him. I've never heard of that before. That's got to be the weirdest thing I've ever heard."
"Not necessarily. Why should a Bigfoot not appreciate a sunset like we do? You'll be surprised to know he was rather human."
"I still say it's weird, really weird." Later in the evening, as I was sitting beside the fire pit with Pippa, I put my arms around her. I was about to give her a passionate kiss. But who should come barging down the beach towards us as per usual, with exemplary timing, along with a mortified expression on his face? It was no other than Mr. Lockwood. I could see that even his loose jowls on his podgy face were jiggling in indignation, and his icy blue Arctic eyes were firing out killer looks at me. He appeared as thunderous as a bad-tempered, grumpy badger. "Dad! Dad, it's you!" piped Pippa in a surprise, her voice wobbling nervously, her face unable to disguise the guilt, embarrassment, and shame of being caught out like this.
"Yes, it's me, Pippa. I'm very glad you recognise your own father."
What are you doing here, Dad? I don't understand."
"I can see, sweetheart, that there are a lot of misunderstandings here this evening, which is very unfortunate. I don't understand one thing, Pippa. Why you're not staying with Lisa Gosnell as you informed me you were. I phoned them up, and they told me you weren't even there. So I put 2 and 2 together and made 4, and figured out you must be with Lachlan. I mean, after all, where else would you be? I phoned his mother, and found out that you were camped out here on a private beach. And what's a father going to think about that? Now, isn't this very cosy? Very, very cosy indeed. A lovely place for a young man with inflamed hormones to take advantage of my innocent daughter. Look, Mr. Lockhart, it's not what you think." "It's not what I think, Lachlan? Are you kidding me? Of course it's what I think. If it wasn't what I'm thinking, why would you sneak behind my back like this? What have you got to hide? Why all the secrecy?"
"Because, Dad, you're always in my face, spying on me all the time. It's like you don't trust me. I'm 21, for goodness sake, not a tiny kid that you need to babysit."
"It's Lachlan I don't trust. I've seen the way he looks at you, Pippa. I know exactly what he's thinking. No one lays a hand on my daughter until her wedding day," said Mr. Lockhart, growing green at the gills. "No one. Do you hear me, Lachlan? No one."
"That's good, Mr. Lockhart. That means we won't have to wait for much longer. We're getting married next week." "We're getting married?" said Pippa, looking at me with a bewildered expression on her face. "We're getting married?" She repeated it as if she couldn't quite comprehend the meaning of the words. "Well, that's if you'll have me." Pippa rushed into my arms, her face glowing with excitement. "Marry you? Of course I'll marry you. I couldn't think of anything I'd rather do. I fell for you in church when you mocked me about my grand entrance. I knew then that you were the one for me."
"Turn around," I told her father. "I do hope you will allow me to give your daughter a kiss in the circumstances."
Mr. Lockhart's jaw dropped open in astonishment, but there was very definitely a thrilled twinkle in his eyes.
I'm very happy for you both, he said, turning around to walk away. You have a week to wait, Lachlan, for the very big day, so don't you dare blow it. Keep your hands off my daughter. Until then, as all good things in life are worth waiting for, my daughter is one of those good things. Mr. Lockhart, you haven't told me anything I do not already know. Do you think I would have put up with all your nonsense for so long if I wasn't head over heels in love with your daughter? I thought as much, said Mr. Lockhart, laughing. I'm looking forward to marrying you both next week. We need to get cracking with the arrangements, for I want Pippa to have a fairy tale wedding.
And true to his words, we weren't disappointed. With all Mr. Lockhart's contacts, we had a huge wedding that was so magical. It was arranged in a week, what for some people might have taken a year, for every single detail of the wedding was absolutely seamless. And when Pippa walked down the aisle in her white wedding dress, I knew that I was the luckiest man in the entire world. She was breathtakingly beautiful. I've been happily married to Pippa for 10 years now, and we always associate the meeting of a Bigfoot with the day that we got engaged. But one thing I learnt from this quintessential experience is that without a doubt, the very best things in life are worth waiting for. So please don't open the bottle of champagne too early. Wait for the quintessential right moment. It'll be worth your while. So there you are. That's my story. What an incredible story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next time, goodbye and good night.